Alright. Are we good?
I dropped anchor.
Is he on the ship?
I don't know. I don't see him. Yep. Hit him once with the blunder. He's down below. Finna go shit on
I'm
him.
behind him.
Mine. He's mine. He's mine.
Mine.
I told you he was mine.
Alright, let's go back. Come on, man. You didn't have a Reaper flag for us this time? Like, what kind of good pirate are you? Attacking us without having anything for us to get.
That's ridiculous. Like, we should have a reward.
Hey, what is up, everyone? In this video, I want to take a look back at the past year of Sea of Thieves. There has been a lot that has happened this year, and it's pretty crazy everything that has gone into the game just in the past year. If you look back at this time last year, there's so much stuff that's been added since then that it's kind of crazy to think about now. So what I want to do in this video is kind of take a look back at this past year, talk about what I thought about the different seasons. We just started the season system this past year, so I want to talk a little bit about that. We talked more about that in the podcast recently, in the Tavern Talk podcast, episode 2. So if you haven't checked that out yet, I'll definitely recommend go checking that out. But for this video, let's just talk about everything. So starting off in January, we didn't really have much happen until the very end of the month when Season 1 of Sea of Thieves launched. Now, I think this season, while it had a lot of hope for it going into it, so I think that kind of blew past some of the lack of content that people were worried about. I think just the hype of having like the season system come in kind of made up for that. Season 1 of Sea of Thieves started off with Merchant Lost Shipment Voyages, which were really good, and I think universally most people like them. However, I really don't see anyone still doing them to this day. I do them here and there, but honestly there's really no reason that we do it because it kind of takes a long time and it just can be kind of a pain sometimes compared to other stuff. They're not bad, and actually they're pretty fun, but I think there's more fun stuff to do in Sea of Thieves than this. Season 1 also brought with it the first Plunder Pass and Free Pass. This one had one of the best Tier 100 rewards, which is the Pirate Legend Curse. So I know everyone really loves that. I still see people using that like pretty much every time they get on. So those were really cool. I think the Free Pass was okay. I think it was better than some other seasons that we've had, but in general I thought it was pretty good. And I think the events this season were really good. We had Vault Raiders, we had the Festival of Fishing, and we had Order to Souls event. So we had one really good event each month, which I think helped keep the season interesting. I kind of thought they were going to do that every season, having like one event every month, but they haven't done that exactly, but it's okay. I think season 1 was really good though, for starting off, making sure the trials worked and setting all that up and just other stuff. And because we know now that while they're working on this, they're also working on the Pirates of the Caribbean update in season 3, which that one kind of took resources away from season 1 and season 2. So that's why I feel like season 1 and season 2 were very lacking in content, and season 3, 4, and 5 had a lot more. With that said, let's go ahead and talk about season 2. So season 2 of Sea of Thieves was kind of a low point in the game, for me at least. If you felt the same way, I'd love to hear in the comments. But season 2 brought with it the Fort of Fortune. Well, I think the Fort of Fortune is fine to be in the game. I don't think it was a good season update. I've talked about this in previous videos before, but the Fort of Fortune is kind of just taking a bunch of different assets and just recycling them into something new, which on paper that sounds fine, but in practice it's pretty boring and lame to me. Because if you think about it, they could have done other things to the game that I think would have been better additions than having the Fort of Fortune. For myself, I'm pretty sure the Ashen Winds is probably the worst world event that we have, at least in like terms of enjoyment. And I think a lot of other people kind of agree that Ashen Winds isn't that fun to do, especially if you're like doing like a solo or a duo. Really, it's only like a team of 4 that can really do it well and efficiently. So with the Fort of Fortune, it kind of seemed dumb to me that they would make it that the final boss is the Ashen Lord, because we literally just got them about half a year before So they didn't really feel like they should have been there. It kind of felt like they should have made something new. Back when Season 2 started, I remember remarking that it would have been cool to see the Fort of Fortune be something similar to the Fort of the Damned. And instead of having the Ashen Lord, it could have maybe been the Gold Hoarder or something new. And I think they could have done more unique stuff with what happened at the Fort of Fortune. Maybe make it like more gold centered. And I don't know, it just was really boring to me. It was basically just all recycled assets. Like, you're going to the same forts as the other ones. You are fighting basically the same enemies, the base waves of enemies. Then you're fighting the skeleton captains that you usually defeat and then be done with the fort in the other ones. And then you have an extra step where you have to fight the Ashen Lord. And I'm just kind of like, that seems like a pain to do. And like, it takes a long time to do the Fort of Fortune. For me, as someone that doesn't really like having to commit like 2 or 3 hours just to play and do one thing in the game, that kind of annoys me. Not to spoil the rankings or anything, but Season 2 is definitely my least favorite season of the year. I think the Fort of Fortune could have been really good if they had done a little bit more to it. I think I would have rather them not have made the Fort of Fortune if they were just going to do it like this, and instead have just maybe buffed up the skeleton forts to make them on par with other things in the game. Or you could have done something else. You could have put a lot of resources into doing the Fort of Fortune and maybe made it similar to the Fort of the Dam, where either it's player activated or maybe it's randomly spawning. You could have done the Fort of Fortune where it only spawns in the Devil's Roar with that one fort. Because think about it, how many people actually go to the Devil's Roar? But if there was a new fort in there that had like really good loot and was a lot more interesting in the gameplay, that would get people over there, and it would kind of bring life to that part of the map, where that part of the map really hasn't seen anything happen in a long time. Alright, so Season 2 had another Plunder Pass and Free Pass and stuff. They were okay. There wasn't really any main complaints from me for that. I forgot to mention it when we talked about Season 1, but Season 1, 2, 3, and 4, I had the same complaint about all the Plunder Passes, and that was that you did not get enough Ancient Coins by buying the Plunder Pass. Season 5 is the only time when you get 1,000 Ancient Coins, which would match the price of what you paid. So that's something to kind of keep in mind while I talk about these different passes and their goodness, I guess you could say. I know a lot of people like the Season 2 Plunder Pass because of the costume, the Dark Warsmith costume at the end. Alright, so the last thing to talk about with Season 2 is the events. Or I should say, event. Compared to Season 1 with 3 events, Season 2 only had 1 event running throughout the whole season. While this might sound like a criticism, I actually think this is one of the best events we had in the game. Sadly, it just came out during like the season I hated the most. The one event we got was the Reapers vs. the World event, and basically I think it was every few weeks or every month, we would have one emissary be the focus, and you were encouraged to do that emissary and do challenges for that. So it would basically be like go on a Gold Hoarder voyage, sail around as a Gold Hoarder emissary, things like that. And it would have that for each of the emissaries. And then they'd have a separate challenge for Reapers to try to get flags and stuff. I thought that was really fun. I thought it really encouraged people to go out and do voyages and all sorts of stuff. And that helped with PvP because there was a lot of people doing stuff and you could go and steal. So I really loved that. I thought it was really cool having the community goal. So basically, whichever emissary got stolen the most flags from, you'd get their hat at the end. If you had stolen at least 10 flags and sold it to the Reapers, I believe that's what it had said. So I thought this event was really good, and I'd love to see more of this in the future. Alright, so next is Season 3, and this is probably the season where, if you're watching me, this might be the first season you ever played of Sea of Thieves. This update brought a lot of people into the game. So Season 3, you have to kind of know the backstory for it. So we have E3 2021 during the summer, and we didn't really expect to get anything big for Sea of Thieves. I wasn't expecting much, no one else was really expecting much. So we're sitting there and watching this E3 presentation from Xbox, and we're watching the show, and no one really expected much from Sea of Thieves for E3. We honestly didn't even know if they would be showing up there because, usually they focus on new games at E3, and we kind of figured, oh, Xbox is, launching a lot of games this year, probably nothing's going to come out. Then out of nowhere, we see this trailer, and we see the Rare logo come up, and some interesting imagery coming out. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. Then it eventually is revealed that Jack Sparrow is now in Sea of Thieves, and that we're getting a whole new giant update with 5 new Pirates of the Caribbean Tall Tales added. This was a massive update, but at the same time it kind of felt like a small update. When I talked in my season review for that season, I talked about how while the Tall Tales were really great and really high quality, they didn't add much to the main game. Take a look at every season update we've had so far to now and talk about how it has changed the game and changed the way we play. Season 1, people are actually doing merchant voyages. Season 2, there's a whole new Fort of Fortune that has more Athena loot now in the server that we can steal. Because usually if you wanted to get Athena loot, it's either you steal a chest of legends from the Fort of the Dam, or you find someone that's doing a Athena voyage, which that's pretty rare. So the Fort of Fortune made it so that there's more pirate legend loot in the Sea of Thieves, which I liked. As much as I don't like the rest of the stuff with the Fort of Fortune, I do like that aspect. Jumping ahead a little bit, Season 4 and Season 5 add a ton to the main game. Season 3 on the other hand, Tall Tales are great. They have this portal system in the game, so maybe they can use that in the future, but so far we haven't seen anything else with it. And I don't know, it's just nothing was really added to the main game. It's not really, there is islands and places that have been added because of it, but they're so far away from the map and there's no reason for you to go unless you're doing the Tall Tale that there's no real point to it. It's not like how the Shores of Gold, you could kind of go there if you're getting chased by someone and you're trying to escape. This has nothing like blocking anyone outside of doing the Tall Tale, so I don't know. I know I sound really negative talking about this season, and I don't mean to, because I really did like the Tall Tales. I had a lot of fun doing it, and I know it helped bring a lot of people into the game, which I think is great. I'm really happy that Pirates of the Caribbean was able to bring more players to Sea of Thieves and to try it out and give it a chance. The one major thing I think Sea of Thieves Season 3 changed to the main game was that it added a whole bunch of new enemies. So before we had skeletons and just different variations of skeletons basically. Now we have ocean crawlers, we have phantoms, and we have sirens. For better or for worse. When they first were introduced, they were pretty annoying to deal with because they would always spawn in if you're just hanging out on an island. Sirens are also really annoying for trying to do tucking and stealing, especially when they were first introduced, where they would spawn like in groups of like 10 to 20 and just like attack you when you're by yourself with like no food. It wasn't a great time, and that's why I started to kind of not play as much towards the end of Season 3. Where I think Season 3 really failed on though is the events. So Season 1, Season 2, we had pretty good events throughout it. Season 3, I think we had the Plunder Games, which basically is you do like a task each day and you could earn gold. That was pretty lame. And then we had the Flags of Friendship event, which that was mainly focused on making alliances and stuff. And if anyone's watched my channel for a while, they know that I don't really like making alliances. I think alliances should be something that happens naturally and not something that you have to force, but that's my opinion on it. Other people have their opinion. I would say this season probably had one of the better free passes for the season. I really liked all the rewards in it, all the outfits and the weapons and the Year 100 rewards. I thought were all really good. But I think it definitely is important to note how fundamental this update was for the growth of Sea of Thieves, because after this update I think the game reached like 25 million players after this point, and that's crazy to think about. I don't think any other update would have brought in that many players before. Alright, next let's talk about Season 4. I really like Season 4 because it added a lot to the main game. It added Siren Shrines and Siren Treasuries. So the cool thing with these places are that there are a bunch of new locations on the map, but it didn't add more to the map in a way too. So the basic map or the world of Sea of Thieves basically looks the same as it did before. And there's no like extra room in the shroud for anything. And there's no like islands that are like stuck somewhere in between the original ones. Rather, all these places are underwater and you can swim down to them. I think this is a really cool way of expanding the map, while also not expanding the map, if that makes sense. I think Siren Shrines were really cool, and they're kind of in between Voyages and Tall Tales in my mind. They have a really great atmosphere to them, and it's really fun to explore them, but I can't say that they're super replayable. So whereas a Voyage is super replayable, and a Tall Tale is kind of like a really good experience that you do once or twice, Shrines kind of fall in between that. Then we have Treasuries. So Treasuries are kind of like underwater skeleton forts in a sense. So you fight waves of enemies and then eventually you fight the boss, and defeating that will unlock a vault door and you get a bunch of loot. So I thought all of that was really cool. I really had a lot of fun like doing those many times. I did them pretty much throughout the whole season until we got to season 5 and I started trying the new stuff that we got. One really cool thing I think they did with season 4 of Sea of Thieves was they had these mermaid statues. So basically you could store your loot in these mermaid statues and then you go back to the surface and there'd be a little mermaid in the water waiting for you, and you can go up to talk to them and then they'll bring all your loot out that they had stored for you. I thought this was really great because it kind of balances out like people just like waiting to spawn kill you when you get back, and you kind of have to be a little bit more careful. Like, they can't get your treasure until you go tell the mermaid it's okay to bring the treasure out. So the Tucker has to wait for you to go get it, and your job is basically to make sure no one's tucking on you or about to attack you, and make sure the coast is clear. So I thought that was a really good way of balancing out both, you know, the people in PvP fighting and the people that are trying to go down and get loot. Season 4 is an interesting one in terms of the season pass to me. While I thought the free pass was really bad, I thought the plunder pass was really good. I really liked the plunder pass in general. There's a few cosmetics I didn't like in it, but I loved the costume. I loved the weapons for the most part. I thought the pistol wasn't as good as I hoped it would be, but it's still not bad. But then if we looked at the free pass, it just was very bland to me. And I know I'm probably alone on this because I saw some comments on it that a lot of people did like the stuff in it, and that's great. I'm glad you liked it. For me personally, it just wasn't for me. But I was happy with the season content update, and that kept me going through the game. The other thing I had mixed opinions on was the events. So I really didn't like the Fury of the Dam event. That was our Halloween event, especially compared to past years' Halloween events. Halloween used to be a really good time in Sea of Thieves. They didn't do much for Halloween this year. There was like 3 or 4 cosmetics, and then the challenge was really boring, and you basically were forced to play with alliances or grind really hard if you wanted to get these rewards. So that was pretty annoying to me, to be honest. The Feast of Bounty event though was pretty good. I enjoyed that one a lot. It was basically just about cooking and eating and then, you know, just being friendly and stuff. It wasn't as big of a commitment as the Fury of the Dam event. And then that brings us to the current season, Season 5 of Sea of Thieves. Season 5 is a really cool one because rather than one big content update like the other ones, we got a bunch of mini stuff. So we got being able to bury treasure, we got fireworks, we got storage crate transfer, which is my favorite feature, probably added all year if we're being honest. Like, that's like game changer to me. So much stuff was added. We also got a pretty good free pass and a pretty good plunder pass this season. So there's really not much to complain with the season so far. We haven't really got to do many of the events yet. We have the Festival of Giving going on, and then we'll have the Grogmany event probably a little after this video goes up. So we got stuff going on that are pretty fun to do, and I really like this season. Alright, so now we're at the point of the video where I think it's a good time to go ahead and rank all the seasons that we've gone in Sea of Thieves. At the bottom, we have Season 2 of Sea of Thieves. Above that, we have Season 1. Next, we have Season 3, then Season 4, then Season 5. Season 4 and Season 5 are kind of interchangeable to me at this point, but I think Season 5 adds so much that I think that's why I put it up ahead. So the good news is, other than Season 2, every season of Sea of Thieves has basically improved and gotten better as time has gone on. So that makes me really excited for the next year of Sea of Thieves going into 2022. But that's it for this video. I hope y'all enjoyed. Make sure to let me know in the comments what your ranking is and what your favorite season of Sea of Thieves was. And if you haven't already, definitely check out the podcast episode where we talk about whether or not the season system was good or not. But that's it for this video. If you enjoyed, it'd be great if you left a like and subscribe. And until next time, thanks for watching, and I'll see y'all next time. Bye y'all.